Okay, Chris Peaks back with Brandon Moseley for our BCS State of Alabama podcast, and we got Representative Susan DeBose here with us today. Um, Representative DeBose, y'all commend you for your bills on what is a woman. Did you ever think that in your lifetime, as much as women had to fight to get equality, that you would have those rights being stripped by depraved men or weirdos or whatever trying to come into their locker rooms?
Never in a million years. And when I ran for the state legislature, never did I think I would be fighting for those issues. I'm a former banker. I thought I was going to be analyzing financial statements and using my, financial knowledge to save the state money and haven't really gotten to do any of that. But I do feel like I did some good with that, protecting women in sports, defining male and female, because the fact is, there are people out there that were confused. There are still people that are confused. Sad to say, the biologists won't even stand up for women. The scientists won't even stand up for women. And it took a young lady like Riley Gaines, who had been so wronged, and to be the one to stand up and say, where are the adults in the room? Where are the parents that are supposed to be protecting kids? Where are the teachers? And finally, it was just this upside down world needed to be righted. And the fact of the matter is, Alabamians agreed more than I think we did a lot of polling on this. 90% of the Republicans, 80% of Democrats agreed that men don't need to play on women's sports and that men are men and women, and one cannot be the other.
I won't get into names, but we had a gubernatorial candidate on this topic earlier in the year, and he was talking about having men's sports, women's sports, and everybody else in their own little sports deal.
Candidates did,
Um,
Brandon, too.
yeah, has anybody actually approached the legislature with that rather unique
No,
compromise
I
deal?
mean, I just don't think there's a huge demand for that. Nobody's approached us for that. I would not recommend spending public money on that. If people on their own want to get together and mix it all up, have at it. But I don't think that's something that public officials need to be spending taxpayer dollars on at the university level or K through 12 level. Nobody's mentioned it to me.
We don't see women who say they're men try to get into men's sports. So is
Yeah.
this depravity just more so with these? I mean, I don't get it. I don't know what this is.
I
This is men just
mean,
want to.
you're right. You don't see it the opposite way. But you do see mediocre male athletes deciding to become female. I mean, that's just the worst kind of coward that there is, if you ask me. That Leah Thomas, the
Yeah,
Pennsylvania swimmer who swam 3 years as a man, and then his senior year, after he was ranked 460 something as a male, decided his senior year to become a female. There's just something not right about that, and that the adults didn't stand up and say no. All that has now been rectified. Riley Gaines got her medals back. The school admitted, University of Pennsylvania admitted, they had done wrong, but it shouldn't have happened that way. It's crazy.
Representative DuBose, in this past week, we had a change at House Majority Leader. Scott Stadhagen stepped down. Y'all
Hmm.
elected Paul Lee out of Dothan. How does that change the House caucus going forward, or does it really change anything?
I think we're going to keep moving along pretty much the same. I think Scott wanted to, pursue that role as chairman of the Republican Party, and that's certainly his right, and good for him. I think that's great. He should have that opportunity. We quickly elected Paul Lee, and I know him well because he's chairman of the Health Committee. I don't know that that's one thing I don't know. I don't know if he'll keep on being chairman of the Health Committee. I think I heard maybe you can't do both, but I'm not sure. But anyway, I know Paul. I like Paul. He's got a lot of experience. He's probably one of the most experienced in the House of Representatives as far as how long he's been there. He served as a chairman a very long time. Um, I think it'll be a seamless transition.
Representative DeBose, last week, we had Representative Mac Butler on, and one of the first topics we talked about was the bills that was trying to make the PSC appointed and still elected.
Hmm.
And he
Hmm.
took Alabama Power to task. What was your take on those whole bills?
Look, I'm probably not as much of an authority on those issues as Mac is. I originally supported the bill to have the PSC um, appointed. My intent was totally just trying to think what is the way we can get the most qualified people in there. Nobody twisted my arm. Alabama Power didn't come to me and say, "Hey, would you do this?" I was just thinking, things aren't as good as they could be. My good friend Cynthia Almond was appointed. She had been a representative with me, and we were actually roommates. We shared a house together, and she was appointed to be chairman after Twinkle took that position with President Trump. And I was thinking about her, and I thought, Cynthia Almond would have never run for this seat, and yet she is so qualified and the perfect fit for that position. And so I'm thinking, maybe that is the best way to get people. Maybe if we have, a governor and a lieutenant governor, they appoint somebody that would never have run. Because a lot of times, good people, if you ask them to serve the state, they are honored and they will do it. And sometimes the best people are the ones that won't run for office, and they're doing it as a calling. So I thought, what? I think I want to sponsor that bill. That sounds good. But then immediately I started hearing from the people in my district, from the Republican women, "Susan, what are you thinking? We want to vote for this. The people want to vote." And I mean, I heard from person after person. And then the bill was moving so fast. And that immediately concerned me. I'm like, why are we pushing this through? I want a chance to talk to my folks. I want to talk to the Republican women who I consider to be some of the brightest people in the state of Alabama. And I want to have time to go back home, talk to them, go to some of these meetings, Zoom with them. And none of that was going to happen. It was just moving too fast. And so I eventually had to call the speaker's office and say, "Look, I'm going to be a no on this bill. I'm not comfortable with this. The people are speaking loudly that they want the vote. And if we vote on this thing, I'm going to be a no." Then they pulled the bill and we didn't have to vote on it. Um, so I think it's important to go home and listen to your folks. And that's part of what we do. It's a deliberative body. Usually bills start one way and they don't end up that way. There's debate and there's amendments and there's lots of things that go on. A bill rarely passes the way it starts. And this one wasn't having time. We weren't having time to fix anything. That concerned me, really concerned me. So that's why I changed my vote. I just felt like this isn't the right thing to do.
Representative DeBose, one of the arguments for that was that, our power rates, even though we're under the Southern Company, are higher than Southern companies in Georgia, Mississippi, and Florida. And we've got the highest power rates in the Southeast. I think TBA rates are like 40% uh, lower than we have up on the power. Is that starting to affect economic development in the state?
Well, we've actually been doing pretty well with our economic development in the state, in spite of that situation, because of a lot of other situations that are going on. We have a low tax base. We have I mean, if you look at our tax rates overall, we are probably one of the lowest five in the whole nation, tax rates per capita, maybe even the lowest, depending on what data you're looking at. Um, we're doing a lot to improve business access to our state. So give or take where Alabama Power is on that, we're improving business wise in the state of Alabama. You see people by the droves moving from blue states to our red states. But if we can improve our anything to do with our power bills, anything like that, of course, that's going to help economically in our state. And that's what we all want to do. We want to put Alabama in the best light for businesses to move here, for families to want to move here and stay here. And that's why, I'm really engaged in education, and that's one of the things I'm really working on. And we're starting to see some movement in education with our reading rates and math rates going up. And all of that, all these things affect businesses moving into the state of Alabama.
Along those same lines, I think there's been a lottery bill introduced. Do you know if that one's supposed to go strictly for education, like the ones brought up in the past?
Well, the ones we brought up in the past, nothing went to education, nothing went to four-year
Okay.
colleges. The last bill that we had 2 years ago, which was gambling and lottery, the money was spread out to so many different areas. Now, none of it went to four-year universities. And people say all the time, "Oh, I want an education lottery." We didn't get to vote on it. That was not in there. Even the lottery portion that it was, the money some of it went to educators' retirement or public employee retirement. I mean, it was just spread out all over the place. And we haven't voted on a lottery only since what, like Siegelman? When was that? 20 years
99,
ago? 99.
almost 30, 99. Yes, ma'am.
30. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's been a long time. Do I think that bill, the lottery bill that's out there now, is going to even come up? I don't think so.
Representative DuBose, you're carrying HB 407, which makes the Miss Alabama, a official state ambassador. Exactly how would that work?
Well, I do a lot of work mentoring young ladies in our state. And it just makes you feel great about the future when you spend a lot of time with the young people in our state. They are so sharp. And I've spent a lot of time working with these Miss Alabama contestants. I've sponsored Girls' Day at the Capitol, where I partner with Miss Alabama Teen and bring young ladies in from all over the state to see women in government, to see women in leadership roles. And through that process, I've just gotten to know these young ladies that are part of this scholarship program. And let me tell you, they are so sharp and so poised, so articulate, talented, so many good things going with them. And the last Miss Alabama, who I've been working with now, or the current Miss Alabama, Emma Terry, came to me and she said a lot of other states have they partner with the Miss Alabama program. And this is the Miss Alabama organization, which goes on to Miss America. It's that particular program. And she said they partner with their states and they're like a hostess, an official hostess or ambassador for the state. There's no pay involved. It's really just a formality, so to speak. But I think it could be mutually beneficial. So Miss Alabama has to take a year out of college. They're not working. And so they have time to help promote the state of Alabama. And what better opportunity for the state to benefit and from the girls to have this access. And it would just be an invitation basis. If Governor Ivey said, I'd like to have Miss Alabama at the inauguration this year, or, we're opening this big school, this career tech center. I'd like to have Miss Alabama there. It would be by invitation. Different departments of the state could invite her to come, and if it fits in her schedule and something she wants to do, then she could be there. Miss Alabama has been at the State House working this bill. I said, Emma, I want you to whip up the boat. And she's been going to talk to the legislators about the bill. And, it's a learning process for her, but I think it's going to be a great opportunity for our state.
Representative, I was talking about back to education. You're talking about the gains we've made. What exactly has fueled that? Is it the money being put in, or the curriculums have changed? What's caused us to improve?
One area that we have improved in, that we've really needed to improve in, is reading, third grade reading, and that is because of the Literacy Act, and it's accountability is what it's called. We are holding our teachers in our schools accountable. So children are being tested in third grade, and if they're not reading at grade level, or actually it's proficient or sufficient, they cannot move on to the next grade. Because what had been happening over the years and years and years is we had just been promoting students, whether they could read or not.
Mhm.
back when we were in school, you've actually failed out and had to repeat a grade, or you had to go to summer school. That had not been going on very much anymore. And so we know how important reading is. And statistically, if you're not reading by third grade, there's too many other things that are going to go wrong in your life. If you can't learn to read, then you cannot read to learn anything else. You lose confidence and the greater chance of being in poverty, being in jail, lots of bad things happen based on that. So, um, yeah, it's literacy, it's accountability, and it's a new reading method, which is really old. It's called phonics. We had to bring back phonics again to teach kids to read. You have to learn to sound words out. They tried to come out with all these new fancy ways, like you just look at a picture and learn to read. No, you actually have to sound words out. That's how we learned. We are back
Mhm.
to the basics, back to phonics, and now kids are learning to read again. Imagine that. We're doing the same thing with math. We're holding schools with what we call the Numeracy Act. We're holding kids accountable for learning math. I call it back to the basics, just back to basics. And we need to continue that throughout their education. Chronic absenteeism has been a problem since COVID. People got real comfortable missing school and they're not real comfortable coming back. So we got to work on that, and we have, and that's one of the things that we have been recognized nationally is our chronic absenteeism rates improving, and that's just by focusing on it and by holding principals and schools accountable for getting those kids to school, getting the parents to get the kids to school. It's amazing to me that I mean we have buses come pick up kids, and there's parents out there that just can't even get their kids to the bus stop. It's sad. But if they don't have a chance, if we can't get the kids to school to teach them, they don't have much chance to learn. So that chronic absenteeism, we have been chipping away with that. And kudos to our principals for working hard in that area and making huge improvements.
Representative DeBose, the state of Alabama's got a lot of things going for it, but now we do have one of the worst workforce participation
Yes.
rates in the country.
Yep.
You've got HB 183, which would allow, I think, homeschool students to participate in career and technical education in the public school if,
Mhm.
the public school will accept them. What's what's
Yeah.
the logic behind that bill?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up and for pointing that out. Yes, one of the lowest workforce participation rates, and this is not a score you want to be low in. So if I think it's around 57 point, we only have 57.2% of our able-bodied Alabamians between the ages of 16 and 65 even looking for a job or participating in the workforce. That's very low. I think the average nationwide is about 63%. It's low. It's been one of the hardest things to change. And it's the slowest moving. I think we have maybe moved it up a tenth of a point in the last year. Seems like Greg Reed reported something like that. So we're starting to make progress, and that has just been a tough one. So yeah, this bill is directly tied to that. So we have been putting a lot of emphasis in career tech opportunities when we want our kids when they come out of high school to either be heading to college, enlisted, enrolled, or employed, is what we said. And we want everybody that wants to go to college to go, but we know that that's not the best fit for some students. Some students are going to do great and even better through a career tech program. And so we've been spending a lot of money, and there's a new emphasis on career tech programs. And one of the hardest things to replicate as a homeschool student is career tech. It takes a lot of equipment and specialized teaching. And so why shouldn't our homeschool students have that opportunity to go to a career tech program in their school district? And this just requires school districts to let these kids in if there's room for them. The children that are in that class get first dibs. Then if there's room, let's let the homeschool kids in. They've been paying property taxes and sales taxes. Let them come in. And that's what this bill does.
Representative DeBose, I know our prisons have come up under a lot of scrutiny here lately. Do you know what's going on with that now?
I wish I did. That issue is heartbreaking. The situation in our prisons, we all know it's heartbreaking. I worry that, there's safety concerns for both the prisoners and the guards. We're building the new prison. I'm probably one of the least qualified legislators to ask about what's going on there. My Senator Dan Roberts is on that prison oversight committee. And I rely on him for that expertise and for that knowledge. And he's been keeping up with it. And I know there's a lot of hard work being done in that area. That is a tough issue. That's one thing I don't know that I'd have the strength to take care of that. It's so serious. I'm glad that we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we all work on different areas in the legislature. I'm glad we have good folks that are tended to that. It's a complex issue.
Representative Reed Ingram from Montgomery has introduced a bill that's carrying it. I think it may have passed. It's at least passed committee. I think it's passed House, but don't quote me on that. Where if you try to elude the police and play Dukes of Hazzard and you're running around the county at 100 miles an hour, that there's stiffer penalties for that.
Yeah.
What's your position on that?
I like that bill. I think it passed out of the House.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
We debated that on the House floor, and it'll be going to the Senate. I like that. Look, that's going to keep everybody safe. It's going to keep the police officers safe. It's going to keep the public safe. It's going to keep the perpetrator safe. Just stop, and let's all, obey the law enforcement officer. We all know that to be true. Isn't that the first thing that your dad teaches you when you get pulled over by the police? You say, "Yes, sir." You put your hands on the steering wheel, and you speak to the police officer with respect. And when you start eluding the police, bad things are going to happen. People are going to get hurt, and we've had that happen throughout our state, and we've got to stop that. We work hard to train our officers in this state to handle the most difficult situations, and they can only do so much. When somebody starts eluding like that, that's a recipe for disaster, and that is a public safety problem. And I'm always going to err on the side of public safety. That's the least we can do as legislators, is keep the public safe.
Along those same lines, the governor just signed into law the bill where we can execute child rapists now. I didn't see the vote on there. Was there any pushback from people not wanting to go along with that?
I can't not remember the vote on that, but yeah, look, that's a serious decision, one worthy of discussion and debate. I completely agree with the bill, but it's the first time that we have ever allowed somebody to be sentenced to death for a crime that did not include death. But to me, doing those kinds of things to a child under the age of 12, that's worse than killing somebody. And under extreme circumstances, it deserves the death penalty. It did have some debate on the House floor. There's always the situation, anytime that you debate a death penalty bill, what if you got it wrong? What if this really wasn't the person that did it? What if you execute the wrong person? I mean, that's always the debate on death penalty cases. So to me, that's when you have to have irrefutable evidence. And a crime so atrocious and a person so evil that they deserve the worst of the punishments. It passed through the House without any problem, but we did discuss it, and I think it's worthy of discussion.
Tomorrow at the legislature, I think it's going to be the Alabama Cannabis Coalition Lobby Day. They're going to be
Oh, is that right? Thank you
they're
for
going
that.
to be there lobbying.
Thank you for that info, Brandon. Great.
They sent me a press release.
That explains it. That explains it. There was somebody from that group, I didn't know who they were, wanting to do a podcast with me, and I looked them up, and it had a cannabis leaf under their name, and I had to decline that interview. But Thank you. That explains it. I wonder what their issue is this
I
time.
think they're upset still about HB, I think it was 442. It regulated the smokables. We can't have psychoactive hemp products that, we homebrewed out of,
Andy Witt's bill from last year. Are you
non-psychoactive
talking
hemp.
about?
We turn it
Are
into
you,
psychoactive and,
yeah. Are you talking about the bill Andy Witt carried last year? That one? Is that the bill you're talking about, Brandon?
um,
I think that's
oh,
what you're talking about. I don't know.
yeah, the guy up in Harvest, Alabama, the representative, Andy Witt's
Yeah.
bill. Of
Yeah,
course, it
that's what I'm
got
talking about.
changed big time in the Senate. They made it a lot stricter. But that I know that made it when the whole implementation of that, it kind of got a lot of podcast views because there's some folks that apparently like cannabis in their beverages and whatnot, which was a
Yeah.
thing going on.
Yeah. A lot of people were upset. Oh, we were going to put out vape shops and hemp shops and this and that. Again, public safety. We don't need to be selling. I don't think that bill was tough enough. If it were me, I'd have made it tougher. I don't think that we need to be selling any of those beverages with hemp or anything like that in the grocery stores. Um, whatever they're for tomorrow, I'm probably against. I don't even know what it is, but I'm probably against it.
Aren't they all
Look,
outlawed now federally?
pardon?
Aren't they all outlawed now federally after that something in the law and spending bills? I thought they couldn't sell any hemp stuff anymore.
No, their stuff's, you know what? And the thing is, they're coming up with different concoctions all the time, a version of this and a version of that. Kids get a hold of them. When they're sold in convenience stores or they're sold I'm
Mhm.
against any of that stuff. And convenience stores, grocery stores, um, it's it's harmful to our youth. Um, I'm going to err on the side of caution anytime that kind of stuff comes up. I'm going to err on the side of protecting the youth and protecting the public. And like I said, I was for Andy's bill. I wish it would have been stronger, and I'll be continuing to advocate in that realm. I don't think it's putting anybody out of business. There's plenty of different products out there that they can sell. There's plenty of hemp that's legal, vaping that's legal. All these things kind of get sold together.
Representative DeBose, you're also the sponsor of HB 243. I think under existing public law, schools are required to post adopted classroom curriculum online for review by parents and guardians now.
Hmm.
This bill would require schools to offer an alternative method for the review of copyrighted materials by parents and guardians. What exactly does that do that's not already in the Alabama law?
Yeah. I don't know if that bill's going to move this year. What that is, so a couple of years ago, we did adopt language that said parents have the right to review all the curriculum that a school is teaching kids, right? They can review textbooks, they can review any curriculum that's being taught in the classroom. But there had been some problems where some curriculum was copyrighted, and usually this was an outside group that was coming in to teach an additional class. Like maybe they're teaching something on bullying or suicide prevention or sex ed or whatever it may be. They're not using state approved materials. They're using their own curriculum. And there were certain groups that were not allowing parents to view it because they said it's copyrighted. We don't want it, we don't want this out there for your review. And I have a problem with that. If to me, if you're teaching it in the classroom, the parents should have the right to review it. So it was parents were having a difficult time. And so this just says parents can come into the school and review it anytime during the school day. I don't think that's a big deal. I think it's one of these common sense things. And most people, when I talk to them about their programs, I was talking to a family that lost a child and they now have a suicide prevention program. And I said, would you allow parents to review the curriculum? And they said, of course. In fact, we send it to parents. We want to partner with parents. And that's the way to do it. If anytime there's any of these sensitive type issues, parents need to have full access to reviewing it. We don't know what's going on in that individual's family. The parent may want to opt them out of that class, or they may just want to be part of the discussion. They may want to read it so they know what that child's being taught so they can continue the discussion at home or help monitor the discussion. So that's what that's all about. It's kind of a really isolated issue, but it's happening.
But was there not a, uniform suicide prevention, or are they just now implicating this? Or
We've had, I mean, there is suicide prevention curriculums going on in the school. There's no uniform one. The schools can use whatever one they want. And, parents can opt out if they want to, or actually, I think they have to opt in, as should be, because, as I said, that's a sensitive topic. But parents should also be able to review the curriculum because there's not one set curriculum for the whole state. If there had been, it'd be out there for parents to review, but there's not. So that's why.
Senator Shay Shelnutt last week passed a bill out of the Senate that will limit comprehensive sexual education in Alabama for
Mhm.
folks that don't quite know. That's not the mechanics of how you get a baby. It delved into other ways that people can entertain themselves.
That's right.
What's that prospects for that legislation in the House, and how does
Well,
that
I'm going to be
change what
carrying,
was?
funny you should mention it. I'm going to be carrying that in the House. It'll start in the Education Committee. It should pass. We've actually passed it out of the House already last year. It just made it to the Senate, never made it to the Senate floor. So this year we started it in the Senate. But yes, that bill is important. It does two things. One, it keeps some of these bad actors out of our school system that are trying to get in there and teach sex ed. And by bad actors, I mean groups that believe in abortion, which is illegal in our state, and or perhaps believe that you can get an operation to change your sex from a boy to a girl, which we don't allow that to happen when you're under the age of 18 in the state of Alabama. So it requires that any outside organizations that come in and teach our sex ed class uh, have to be with organizations that support our state laws. And then it's kind of updating language. We've always been abstinence based, but now we are also using the term uh, sex, sexual risk avoidance. That basically means abstinence based. And so that does not include comprehensive, which includes a whole lot more information than students need to learn at school, and some information that students never ever need to know. It includes information I wish I didn't know. And I'm over 60 years old. There's stuff in there that I've lived my whole life without knowing. And now that I know it, I am not better off for it. So it does not need to be taught to our kids. So that's what it is. I mean, parents again they can opt out, they can review the curriculum. Um, it's just tightening up some of the language, but we've always been abstinence based in the state of Alabama. We're going to keep it that way. And then we put in some new stuff because nowadays kids have to learn how dangerous sexting is, and they have to learn about sexual harassment online and, some of the internet issues that our children face now that we didn't have to face years ago. And so we include some of that um, appropriate age appropriate training in those classes as well. And these classes, again, they're all optional. Parents can opt out of any of it.
so, how do parents react to this? Because that seems like that would be a very sensitive topic right there, teaching children these things.
It is. And some parents don't want it taught. They don't want their kids taught it at school, and that's fine. I understand that. Some of them want them to learn it at school. I mean, I'm sorry, at church. When my kids were in church, they did all this stuff in church. And then some parents are fine with it. I mean, honestly, most of the stuff it's practical and it needs to be kept appropriate and age based. But parents absolutely need to have the opportunity to review the material and make sure they're okay with their child being in that class. And I remember when we were in school, like you would be separated, boys here, girls here. They don't even separate them anymore. So it's kind of awkward. I've sat in on some of those classes. I went out to Pelham and sat in on it. And the teacher that came in was a nurse and extremely professional and just great with the kids and kept it all appropriate. But it was just kind of awkward for me, even sitting there listening to it. And I kind of felt I knew it was a difficult conversation for some of those girls, even though it was, appropriate. So, I think each family has to decide for themselves how they want to handle that. But look, it is in our it's in our curriculum, and if it's there, we're going to keep it appropriate, and we're not going to go into some of these areas that kids just absolutely do not need to know about.
Um, Representative DuBose, you've got a primary opponent.
Hmm.
Um, how's the campaign going?
Well, I'm just doing what I do all the time. I'm staying active and out in the community and doing stuff like this. The whole time I've served, I haven't stopped working for the people of my district, being available. I answer my phone. My cell phone is out there. People can easily get in touch with me. I'm always putting on stuff on social media so people know what's going on. I'm really not changing anything. I'm just continuing to work as hard as I possibly can for the people in District 45, all the way from Chelsea to Irondale. And look, I feel great about things. I do have a primary opponent. I think he ran for mayor of Leeds and got 15 votes. I've never met him. Um, I'm sure he's a nice person. I'm not sure what his issue is or why he's campaigning. I can't find him on the internet anywhere to find out much about him.
That's a pretty broad district, diverse there from Irondale to Chelsea, isn't it?
It's the best district ever. And it's look, Chelsea, I'm mostly North Shelby County. I'd say 70% North Shelby County. Then I have Leeds. I have all of Leeds, which yeah, I would say it's diverse, but great community. Just old historic community, really strong people of faith, people very active in the churches there, people that have lived there for generations. So I love Leeds. And then I have a little bit of Irondale. I have about a third or maybe less of Irondale, which is an up and coming community. Um, Mostly I would say my district as a whole is very conservative. Even even my Jefferson County folks, I'd say they're very conservative, traditional family value people. But look, I represent the whole district, and if anybody wants to talk to me about any issues, I'm always open. I always take my phone calls, and if we may not be able to agree on every single thing, but I tell you what, I will listen to you and respect your positions.
Um, the Democrats only contested 55 of the 105 House seats. Do
Hmm.
you think that sends an acceptance that we really don't have an issue to run on when we can't find candidates to challenge? I mean, they're challenging barely half of the Republicans.
Yeah. I think the Democrat Party is just in a state of disarray in our state. I don't think they have a cohesiveness. I don't think they have strong leadership, as a party. Um, and I think that Alabama, look, we're just a red conservative state. That's just who we are. I think there's just not enough of them to to be able to have a strong presence in the state of Alabama. Uh, Even our Democrats are conservative, many of them. And that was one of the things that I found so interesting about being in the state house is that we're all both of the aisles, people of people of faith, and I think that differentiates us from many states in the union. And that's one reason I love Alabama. Wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Do you have any thoughts on the steering committee removing these people from the ballots over the last few weeks?
I have not paid much attention to that, to tell you the truth. I'm busy just trying to keep up with what we're doing in the state house. That's a handful right there. And I let the steering committee handle their steering committee stuff. And whatever comes out of it is what we deal with. So I really don't have any comments on that. Not trying to be elusive, but I honestly haven't kept up with it.
Understood.
Representative DeBose, we've had you on for over 40 minutes. I think we've asked you more questions than we probably should have. Is there
Y'all
anything
did
you'd like
great.
to add before you go?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I look when the press calls me or anybody call, I usually try to answer, especially if we're going to be talking about something that I'm involved in, because I enjoy it. And every time I do one of these, I learn something. I learn from you guys, and I'd rather tell my story than have somebody else tell it the wrong way. It's kind of my attitude. And look, I'm continuing to learn, and I'm continuing to work hard in Montgomery and mostly in the community where I live and where the people are. And I'm not a perfect person, but I'm as working as hard as I can to do the best as I can, the best that I can for the people in District 45 and the state of Alabama. And it's an honor for me to get to serve everybody from the top of the state to the bottom of the state. Don't y'all think we live in the best state?
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you very much for coming on, Representative DeBose. It was a pleasure talking to you, and good luck in your reelection campaign.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure, my honor. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being on.
You're welcome.